Hey guys, welcome to another episode of A Journey to Identity. I am your host, Sharon Tillman. How is everyone doing? Did everyone have an amazing Thanksgiving? Listen, okay, I definitely enjoyed Thanksgiving. I talked a lot about Thanksgiving and the transition and like all of the things that we had going on. And so we did go to family's house, which was awesome. It was so good to like still have the embrace of our tradition and still be able to incorporate some of the things within our tradition, even being in a different space. So that was awesome, and we really enjoyed that. Was I a little homesick? I think I was just a little homesick. We did a lot of traveling on Thanksgiving also. So we traveled to see different family members. And so the day definitely became like a day of just doing a lot of moving, I feel like. And I'm not used to that. So it could have been a little bit of that also, just like not used to going from house to house on Thanksgiving. So going from house to house and not being at home, I think it was a combination of them all. But I did feel a little homesick. I can't lie. But overall, it was great. The food was great, as it always is. And so I really enjoyed it. I would love to hear how Thanksgiving was for you. How was Thanksgiving? Did you guys get to incorporate your favorite traditions? Did you guys get to keep your favorite meals? Did you try anything different on Thanksgiving that you typically wouldn't try? I would love to hear all of that, just to kind of know like where you are and like what the holiday was for you. I also know that this is a time of year where people definitely start to feel a lot of different things. As a therapist, I had several clients to reach out over the holidays because it was such a hard time for them, as it shall increase for a lot of people as Christmas approaches. And so I want to just be that beacon of light and encouragement for you guys. If you are listening to this podcast, to be encouraged. I know holidays seem to be hard times because I think we remember a lot of times the things that we've lost or the people that we lost, the loved ones that are no longer with us. But I want to challenge you, right? Challenge has definitely been my favorite word today. I have a challenge going on. I'll mention that after. But I definitely want to challenge you to shift the mind perspective, right? And instead of thinking about all of the things that you've lost or the people that you lost, or even grieving what was, I want you to focus on grieving what is, right? And I want you to think about all of the memories. Think about, and this is why I think it's so important for us to spend time with people. Is so important for us to love on people and to cherish people when they are here. Because when they are no longer here, those are the times when we have to reflect on all of the good times, all of the good memories, all of the good things that we were able to do. And so I want to challenge you, right? As the holidays are coming and as Christmas is approaching, and how this year seems to really make people sad, I want to encourage you to think about the good times. Think about the good memories. I want to encourage you to pull back that memory bank, right? That part of our brain that remembers. I want you to really focus in on remembering the good things. Remember the good times. Remember your encounters, right? If it was a situation where the last days weren't the greatest days, then go back a little bit further, right? It's a challenge for a reason, because it forces you to shift your mind. It forces you to put your mind, it forces you to put your attention on something different. And so I definitely want to encourage you to put your attention on something different. So there's that. I hope that was encouragement for you. Um, as I speak about my challenge, I have a challenge going on for 2026. I have some coaching opportunities that are available, and I want to challenge people to really work internally for 2026. I know every single year we come up with New Year's resolutions, right? We're always thinking of the things that we can do externally. Like everybody gets a gym membership, even if they get the free month and then they keep it for maybe a month or two after. Everybody does it. Everybody goes in like, I'm going to eat differently. I'm going to do differently. Like sometimes people set small goals, like I want to accomplish this, I want to achieve this, but very seldom do people actually work on their internal selves. And so this year, for 2026, the challenge is an internal work. I want you to work internally. I want you to work from the inside out, work on those things, right? That we sometimes suppress, that we sometimes get rid of, work on those things that we sometimes don't want to acknowledge, like our trauma, our triggers, like our insecurities, like all of those things that hold a place within us internally that we're trying to externally cover. Right. So a lot of times our external things are to cover the things that are internal because we feel like people can't see them. So we're like, oh, nobody can see that I'm insecure, especially when I show up and I got on Gucci and I got on Prada and I got on Fendi, or I'm always dressed down, my face is always beat, my hair is always done, like, or because I work this job in corporate America and I always got myself together, or because I can write a check with like all of the zeros. It made me think of like um the Mary Mary song, the God in me, right? So because you can write a check with all these zeros or whatever your thing is, right? We'll think that because we're doing these things externally, that internally people can't see that we're insecure. But a lot of times our external things are crying out louder than our internal things, excuse me. Our internal things are crying out louder than our external things. Like, you don't think that people can see that you possess an insecurity because you've got all of these things going on the outside. But sometimes your insecurity is screaming so loud that that the things on the outside is like a flash to what we can actually see. And so I want to challenge you, and that is my challenge. You're going to see it blasted all over social medias. You're going to see it coming through. You'll see it anywhere I am, you'll see it. So if you want the information, if you want to sign up, if you want to be a part of this challenge, if you want to do any of the things, I admonish you to leave a comment, get in a DM, go to the website, do any of the things. But I don't want you to miss this challenge. I don't want you to miss an opportunity to be a better version of yourself, to be the better version of who you are, who you've been called to be, and what it is that God is saying concerning you. I don't want you to miss that. Excuse me. I don't want you to miss that. Definitely don't want you to miss that. So, I want you to consider that. I want you to consider that challenge. I want you to see how that challenge can work for you. Yeah, I want you to think about how that challenge can work for you. How can you benefit from that, right? Because I think a lot of times we focus so much externally. We are so worried about like what we look like on the outside, how we show up to people on the outside. Not just in our physical bodies, because that's important, right? How we show up, what our body shapes look like, what we're wearing, are we always dressed down? Like those things we put so much emphasis on. But I also think in the way that we show up, we focus a lot on like what people see when they see us. When they see us, do they see confidence? Do they see power? Do they see money? Do they see, importance? Do they see like all of these things, right? I'm just trying to like name some things off the top of my head, because we focus so much externally to make sure that whatever picture we are trying to post to people is the picture that they actually see. We put so much emphasis, so much time into that. But what if, right? Challenge. What if we put that same energy into actually being the things that we're trying to prove to people that we are, right? So, what if we put the time into actually being healed because we're so busy trying to prove to people that we're healed, but our version of being healed sounds like unhealing. It sounds like we're not healed. It sounds like we might still be mad, but we are focused so much on people believing that we're healed because of what we're saying and how we're trying to show up, that we're missing how we're actually showing up. even when it comes to, like the insecure feelings. I said insecure because I think insecurity sometimes is something that we all deal with from a certain extent, right? Like there's always something about you that you're a little bit insecure about. And a lot of times, because we don't learn to embrace the things that we don't always like about ourselves, we don't learn to embrace those things that we feel just a tad bit insecure about, then the insecurity grows. And then our fear is that other people can see our insecurity. And so instead of us embracing it and becoming aware of what it is so that we can deal with it, right? Because awareness is key. Becoming aware, acknowledgement is also key. Acknowledging that the insecurity really exists. Us suppressing it doesn't make it any less valid. I mean, the difference between the truth and the lie, which is something that I can get into at a different time, right? There is a difference between the truth and the lie. Just because the insecurity is present doesn't mean that the insecurity is truth. It doesn't mean that the truth is valid within the insecurity. It just means that the insecurity exists. And so I think a lot of times, because we're trying to psych ourselves out so much, that we're thinking that we're psyching other people out. But the difference is the people who've actually done the work, the people who are actually going through healing and that are healed in a certain extent, the people who have actually acknowledged, and the people who are actually aware, they can see. And sometimes you don't even have to be completely aware or completely acknowledged to be able to see that that doesn't look the same on everybody. And so I'm challenging you this year. I want to see everybody win in 2026. I want to see everybody do that work internally like they do externally. I want to see everybody become the better version of who they are, right? We never arrive. I make that very clear. We never arrive, but clearly we can all be better. And so for 2026, let's make that a thing, and let's trend that, and let's go viral with that, right? But let's do some internal work. Let's be better together. How about that, right? I love that. I love that. So, speaking of that, I think a lot of times, and I guess I'm going to talk to my single ladies today because I myself am single, right? And so I think a lot of times, especially around this time of year, it goes into the internal work. I think a lot of times, especially around this time of year, um, that that feeling, or that feeling creeps in, right? That feeling of loneliness, or feeling alone, feeling like you don't have anybody. Like it's almost like a time where, like, the sadness that comes on when you've lost loved ones, I think it's also, or can also be, a sadness that comes over some singles around this time of year, where they feel like, I'm still by myself. I'm still single. I'm still by myself. And there are some people who have completely embraced singleness, right? But that there are others who have not, right? And so I think that it's important that we understand, like, how do we balance, how do we find ourselves in that place of acknowledging that this is where we are without feeling like we're missing out on something at the same time, right? I think I've had more single conversations this season, and the season is really just getting started, right? But the holidays come, and this is what everybody wants to do, and everybody focuses on, the couples that are smiling, the couples who look like they're happy, the couples who, are trending, the couples who, like, hashtag couple goals, the couples who look like they just got all their stuff together, when you really don't know what people are going through behind closed doors. We don't really know if people are really happy, or if they are Facebook happy, or if they are Instagram happy, or if they are Twitter happy, or if they are, like, whatever, because all you can see is the highlight reel. All you can see is they're smiling for the camera. They're smiling to post this picture, but honestly, you don't know what they're dealing with outside of this picture. Like, once the picture is captioned and it's posted, like, or how did they really feel when they took the picture? I can remember being in a relationship. I always talk about my marriage to John, and I can remember being in a relationship, and I can remember taking pictures for an occasion and faking my smile, right? Because I can smile and look happy, but really not be happy on the inside. And so I think a lot of times we focus so much on seeing other people together and feeling like if I had that, I would be in a different place instead of saying, like, but I don't even know what that is, right? I know what it looks like, but I don't know what it really is behind closed doors. And so it really goes into the internal work because I feel like as singles, right? I've been single now for several years. And I've chosen singleness, right? I left John, so that was my first choice of singleness, right? Okay, you're not gonna be married no more, you're single. I dated and was outside, all out here in these streets, honey. I done talked about it on this podcast. If you know, you know. Okay. But then whenever I came back in and I was like, you know what? I need time for Sharon. I need to know this girl. Because like I married John when I was in my 20s. I got with John when I was in my teens. So clearly I didn't even know the version of Sharon that was showing up. I never met the single version Sharon in her 30s. I didn't know what that looked like. I had no idea. And so I think because I really didn't know, like there was a part of me that was just like, I really need to get to know this girl. Like it's easy for me to go out here and just date somebody, but like I don't even know what I want. Like I know what I don't want, right? I clearly know that I don't want another John, right? Let's be clear. But I don't know enough about me in this particular space in order for me to even know like how to really connect with someone on that level without bringing my hurt, bringing my trauma, bringing my issues into this situation. Because clearly I had issues, right? I just came out of a long term relationship. I was married to John for about 14 years and we had been together for almost 20. So over half of my life at that time had I been with the same person, right? So this is a long-term established relationship, like senior saints. You know how they say like senior saints, these people who've been in church like their whole life, right? That's how I felt about my relationship. I've been in this relationship my whole life, okay? Because clearly I was in there in my teens, all of my 20s, half of my 30s, my whole life, literally. So this was all I knew. But I felt the importance of really getting to know the version of Sharon that I had never been introduced to. So I needed to know what the healed version of Sharon looked like, right? And so I talk a lot about this because I think it's important. I think it's important for and don't get me wrong, I had options, okay? Because I know a lot of times people would be like, "Oh, I'm single," and they ain't really had no options, right? But I did. I've dated people, right? In that phase of dating, even after, right, coming from outside, choosing, like, okay, I'm ready to do something different. I remember the last guy that I was actually dating, and I'm telling him, like, I feel God pulling on me. I feel a transition coming. I can feel it. Um, I'm not going to fornicate, right? I'm not going to do that. So I need you to know right here, right now, that that's not a part of my life so that you have an option to walk away if that's what you choose to do. And I remember him being completely on board with it, completely supporting, all of the things because he loved God as well, right? So I remember that. But I also remember like just being in that relationship and like him ready to like just jump into the next step and go the extra mile and go to another level and let's just be exclusive and let's talk about marriage and let's do all of these things, and I just wasn't there because I was still broken, right? And so I'm making this point very clear because I think a lot of times we don't really put enough focus on our brokenness. We think that we can heal our brokenness by jumping into another relationship, and that is not accurate. We don't heal our brokenness by jumping into another relationship. We suppress the brokenness. And then we make it harder for the next person. So once it's suppressed, all we're doing is pouncing on top of the brokenness. And what happens is it just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Every time we deal with hurt, we're already broken. So that hurt is just seeping in into what brokenness is already there. And so I knew that in order for me to be not just good for him, right? Even if it was going to be a him, because clearly I didn't even know if he was the one, right? He thought I was the one. And he said the Lord told him that I was the one. I said, well, the Lord ain't told me, okay? And maybe I'm not in a position to hear clearly from the Lord at this point. So I got to hear because I ain't heard that, okay? I didn't hear that. But I knew that if I was not being good just for him, right? Not being good just for the relationship. I needed to be good for me. I needed to be good for Sharon. Like I needed to be able to show up happy and show up healthy. I needed to be able to like internally do the work that I knew was corrupting what the responses was that people were seeing externally. Like my going outside was an external thing that was an internal issue, right? Internally, I was dealing with a lot of things. I was hurt. I was heartbroken. I was mad, angry, and upset. I was embarrassed. I was, I felt stupid. Like I felt so many different things. So my going outside was like my external fix to my internal issue. I wasn't even touching the internal stuff. I wasn't dealing with any of the things that I was feeling. I was just outside making sure that that internal stuff wasn't interrupting the flow of girl, you still got it. Like I know it's been a long time, but you cute or whatever. Like like you still got it, right? And so I think a lot of times when we focus so much on the external, like it's only because we just don't want to deal with those things that are inside. And so internally, I was struggling. I don't care how I showed up, I was struggling. I was hurt. And like, I love the fact that I can be so honest and transparent, not just on this podcast, but in general, baby. If you know me, you know me, okay? Anything that the Lord heals me from and gives me permission to share, I share because I know that my story is not who I am. It's my story makes me who I am today, right? I'm not ashamed of the things that I've gone through. I'm not ashamed of the things, even the things that hurt, even the things that were hard. Divorce is hard. I never wanted it. I never would have chosen it. I didn't walk down that aisle and deal with all the criticism, all the hate, all the things that I dealt with to ever think that I would be getting a divorce. I just didn't do that. But I had to deal with it, right? The abandonment and rejection that I felt from my parents. I never would have chosen to be born into this world, to have parents, and I never get to experience like the the fulfillment of what it feels like to really be loved by your parents. Like to I mean like a deep love. Like I fell off my bike and my dad is picking me up and he's cleaning my wound and he's letting me know that I'm going to be okay. And he's securing a place in me that makes me safe. So I know what I'm looking for when I'm out here in these streets, right? Or a mother to embrace me and to hug me and to love me. Like I felt slighted a lot of my life because those were things that I just didn't have. But today I take nothing for the journey. Like I never would have asked for it, but I'm not ashamed of it because I know that it is a part of my journey and it is conditioning me for who God has called me to be. It is preparing me, it is cultivating me for who God has called me to be. And so for that, I take nothing for the journey, right? I take nothing for it. So I'm never ashamed of the things that I've had to go through, but I never would have chosen them, right? If God didn't allow them, I wouldn't have chosen them. Just that's just the way that it is. But I knew that I needed, like, I knew that I needed to get to know. Sharon, I needed to heal. I needed to be okay. I needed to learn how to love me again. Because somewhere along in that relationship, I lost loving myself. I stopped loving myself because I think my focus was so much on loving John, so much on trying to save a marriage that God clearly told me it was never my marriage to save. Didn't tell me that while I was still married. He didn't tell me until after. But hey, you know, God's timing is perfect timing all the time, right? Would I have done anything different had He told me that before? Who knows? But I spent a lot of time loving John, a lot of time trying to love the parts of John that I felt like if only this would change or if only that would change. I spent a lot of times trying to love John right, thinking that if I just focus on him, if I just love him, if I just pray for him, if I just keep calling his name out, if I just keep anointing the side of the bed he sleep on, baby, because we get deep over here sometimes, right? I'm anointing the bed and the pillows. I'm anointing his truck tires. I'm anointing his shoes. Like in my mind, I'm like, God, if I keep doing these things, then clearly he is going to take a turn. Like clearly we're going to be okay. But in the midst of all of that, I forgot how to love me. And I let myself go in so many ways because I was too busy trying to externally make a picture look like something that internally was broken. It was broken. But I thought that if I keep this up and if we keep presenting, right? I think sometimes we take the Bible and we definitely make it work for us, right? If we keep speaking those things that be not as though they were, right? I'm speaking that he's going to be something different, and clearly it wasn't coming to pass, right? But I think not that the scripture is wrong, not even in the way that you choose to interpret is always wrong. I think that we just take the scriptures and we don't look at the context of what needs to be in place in order for these scriptures to be lived out. So I'm in my head like I'm just going to keep speaking it and it's going to come to pass because that is what the Lord's word said. But the context of what is happening behind closed doors, I'm ignoring that. I'm ignoring what the reality of what it is that we're going through. And so I think a lot of times we do those things internally. We're 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 suffering. Externally, we're trying to show up big. And so, in the midst of all of that, I knew that if I didn't get to know the version of Sharon that came out of that marriage, if I didn't get to know the version of Sharon that had to live out loud for the three amazing, amazing children that were birthed through that union, if I didn't get to know the version of Sharon that God had already called, that I was going to let die with that marriage. Not maybe not a physical death, but a spiritual death. I was dying, right? I was dying. I never blamed God, ever blamed God. God was with me every step of the way. I told you guys how I prayed and I said, God, if you give me permission to choose me, I'm going to choose me and I'm not going to look back. And God clearly said to me, just as I am saying to you guys on this podcast, God said, choose you. I want to add daughter, but he didn't say daughter, but I feel that in my spirit, like choose you, daughter. But he didn't say daughter. He just said choose you. But I'm adding the daughter because I feel like he was up there like choose you, daughter, because I done told you, right? That's what I felt like. That's how we get down, right? So I know that he was with me every step of the way. Never once did I blame him, but I blamed myself because I'm like, Sharon, you wasted so much time trying to make it work and it still fell apart. Think of all the years that you've missed out on in your life. And so then I'm out here like trying to reclaim Not only do I still got it, like you cute or whatever, but do you still got what it takes to even go out here and be? But it was almost like that rejection in me of like, he didn't want you, he rejected you, right? He rejected you within the marriage and rejected the marriage. And so now that insecurity inside of me is like, you gotta prove that, like, you still got it. Like, you gotta prove that you can get another. Like, what did Beyonce say? Like, I can get another you in a minute, right? I think that song was like playing in my head. So in my mind, I'm like, no, I need to prove that I can get another. And so my whole going outside and dating was like, no, I'm gonna prove that this insecurity is wrong. Like, I'm not about to be insecure because he rejected me. Like, I'm going to prove that I can still get someone. And so I'm outside going with all the people because I'm like, no, because clearly it was him, it wasn't me, right? But I think a lot of times this is what happens to us. And I don't want to get sidetracked because I'm talking to my singles, I get it. And it may just hit home for someone who's married. It may hit you and it may hit you in the gut, and it's okay, right? It's okay. But I want to talk to you because I think a lot of times that external outpour, we're trying to make it so loud so it'll drown out the external things that we need to do, and it's not drowning it out. It's exposing exactly what needs to happen. And so I took the time off. I'm going somewhere, so just go with me. But after I stopped dating the guy, he was the last guy that I actually dated. I'm everybody named John on this podcast, okay? So after I stopped dating this guy, and I told him that I just wasn't ready for where he wanted to go, um, I shut down. I didn't date anybody, okay? I rededicated myself to the Lord. I rededicated my body to the Lord because clearly the body was outside, okay? I rededicated my body to the Lord. And I focused internally on me. Who is the girl that came out of this marriage? She's definitely not the 15-year-old girl that went into this relationship. This girl is 35 now. You're 35 coming out of this relationship. I was 35 going, yeah, I was 35 at the time when John and I separated. I'm coming out of this relationship 20 years later. I have no idea who she is. What are the things that she likes? What are the things that she don't like? What are the things that she'll tolerate? What are the things that she won't? What are her non-negotiables? What is important to her? What really matters to her? Right? Because I think a lot of times we focus so much on the next. I can get another you in a minute, literally, right? That we don't take the time out to see what part of us died in the last relationship so that we'll even know what part of us needs to be birthed. And so it was important for me to get to know this girl. And so that's what I did. I took the time off and I didn't date anyone for over 2 years. You hear what I said? Over 2 years, I didn't date anyone. I didn't go on dates. I wasn't on any dating apps. I wasn't open to dates. For 2 years, I did nothing. Over 2 years, actually. I did nothing. I wasn't even looking to date. I was really focused on getting to know who I am. Who is Sharon? Why has God chosen her to go through these things? God, what do you want to do with my life? And how do I make sure that I don't die with that marriage, right? Because I said that before and I don't know if I finished it, so I wanted to go back to it. Because spiritually, I never blamed God, but I wasn't where I was in God anymore. Because I was outside, clearly I was distracted. And it was like one of those things for me. I laugh about it all the time, but it was really like one of those things for me. I was like, God, I'm gonna be right back, right? Because I don't listen. Everybody different, but I don't play with the Lord, right? I'm not gonna be playing with Him. I'm not gonna be up here singing and preaching and teaching and all these things, and then my I'm outside on the other end. Like I don't play. I don't play like that. I'm all in or I'm all out. There ain't no in between for me. If the Lord don't do lukewarm, then Sharon don't either. Okay? It's no need for me to die and go to hell through church. So I decided if I'm gonna be outside, I'm gonna be outside. And I was outside. Okay? I chose outside. And it was like a God, I'm gonna be right back kind of thing. But I knew that He wasn't gonna allow me to stay there. But I also knew that if I stayed out there too long and got myself caught up, it would have been hard for me to come back in. So I remember talking about, and I'm sure I've shared this on the podcast, but I remember when I could feel the pull, like when I could feel the Lord almost like reeling me in. Like I'm such a visual girl, right? I love analogies. I talk about that all the time. I'm an analogy girl for sure. And so it was almost like when the storm was doing all the things when they was on the boat. And the Lord is standing out there like, nah, I'm just reeling her in. So it's shaking up because I gotta reel you in. Like you, come on, right? That's what it felt like for me. And so I remember when the time was coming and I could feel it coming. And so I knew that there was a version of me that God needed to produce out of this. And I wasn't going to allow John and everything that happened to not allow me to be the person in God that He had called me to be. The person in God that He had already chosen and predestined me to be. I refused. So for me, I was like, there is absolutely no way that I'm going out like this. I'm not going out like this. God had already made me promises. I knew that there was something on my life that He already wanted to use me for. So I'm like, there is no way I can die here spiritually or even become spiritually stagnated that I can't move forward. So I shut it down. And I shut all the things down. So for over 2 years, I did not date. I did not pursue dating. I did not talk to any males in that kind of manner. Like I really wanted to focus on me. I wanted to focus on the things that I love. I wanted to focus on the things that I didn't. I wanted to focus on what my core values were and what I felt aligned with, right? I've been married before. So I know a thing or two, right, about marriage and what it pertains and what it looks like. And I've learned a few things out here on this journey with John for almost 20 years. And so for me, I was just like, okay, I know the things that I want. I know the things that I don't want. I know the things that align with who I am and who I'm called to be. And so I wanted to focus on those things so that I could put strength there because those were the things that I wanted to attract my next. I think a lot of times we move so fast that our trauma, our past, our brokenness is what's attracting these relationships. And so when we meet someone who's just as broken as we are, and then we get into this relationship and it's toxic, and next thing you know, it's complicated. We're on again, we're off again. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know when we're doing it. Like we together, but we not together. Like we broke up, but now we back together. Like all that high school stuff, right? But I think you see so many adults living in this space because we are attracting the same spirit that we possess of brokenness, of trauma, of unhealing. And so we're not able to connect with the person that God may intentionally have for us, which, okay, my bishop is doing a relationship series. Segue. He's doing a relationship series and he put a picture up on Sunday of the one. Child, I didn't even know who he was because I am not a Matrix watcher. Okay. So I had no idea that this man they called the one on the Matrix. That's what he put up on the screen, right? And so he had all of these descriptions for what the one is, right? Because we be out here thinking like, oh, this is what the one looks like, and oh, there's only one guy for this particular person or whatever. You got to go watch the series. But when I said the one, it made me think of it. But we're out here looking for the one, and we're wondering why we can't attract to the person that we would love to have. We keep getting knuckleheads. We keep getting the same kind of guy. Like, why do I keep getting the same kind of guy every time? Like, why? Like, is it written on my forehead that this is the kind of guy that I want? But the reality is, your broken spirits, your unhealed spirits, your traumatized spirits are connecting. And so this is why you keep finding yourself in the same situation over and over and over again, because you're not choosing healing. And you're not choosing focusing on the healing, focusing on the better version of you, focusing on, okay, let me get to know who just came out of this relationship. Because I need to know who's coming out, because the way that I went in is definitely not the way that I'm coming out. So let me get to know the person that came out before I insert her in another situation. And so that was so important to me. And I think more so because I was so embarrassed, y'all. Let me just be very clear, okay? It is so hard and embarrassing, right? When you are praying for your husband, okay? You are praying for your husband, honey, night and day. You praying and you fasting and you thinking you doing all the things right as a wife, just for your husband to be out here having a whole nother relationship, like right under your eyes, right? To the point where he gets sick and you still praying and you believe in God, and God is like, boop, let me just drop this right here, exposure, right? And then in the back of your mind, you still praying. Like, okay, God, but he gonna come back different. And when he come back, and God probably up there like, girl, I'm gonna need you to get it right, right? But after all of that transpired, and we still ended up not together, like just for him to, for my daughter and son to catch him, like y'all have no idea how embarrassed I was. Like I was so embarrassed. Like, oh my God, like everybody knows that. Like, we just been praying for this man, and like, oh my God, like he just went through this traumatic episode with this heart attack, and we just been praying for him, and like all of the things, and then boom, they're not together anymore because John been out here in these streets. I was embarrassed. Like, y'all have no idea. And so I think for me, one of the things that I connected with is I don't like the way that feels. So I don't want to be embarrassed anymore. But then when I put the embarrassment with the embarrassment that I felt even with my children, because my children watched me pray and they watched me cover him and they watched me cook for him and clean. Like, they watched me be a good wife to him. And then for it to still end in the demise the way that it did. Like, it was like one of those things where I'm not just healing for me, I'm healing for them. I'm not just healing I'm not just gonna be the better version of myself for me. I need to be the better version of myself for them, because they need to see their mom go through all of that and to come out all right. Like, I need them to know that no matter what you go through, no matter what you face, no matter what you experience in your whole life, that God has the ability to bring you out better than you went in. And I needed them to see that, because I felt like I needed to save face for my children even though I didn't. They accepted me, they loved me, and they were okay because they was like, Mom, we saw you doing all you could do. But I felt like I just want them to see, I want them to see something different. I want them to, I don't want to come out and be mad and bitter and angry and not try relationships again and feel like, because it is scary. It is scary sometimes coming out of a relationship of that long. I came out of this relationship of almost 20 years. I've been with the same person for so long. I had sex with the same person for so long. Like, at first, I was like, oh my God, I haven't even had sex with anybody else in my whole life almost. But Clearly, I got over that real quick. Okay. But it was like, I have been with the same person for so long. I didn't want to come out and be bitter and be angry and not want to try relationships again. And, every time I see somebody happy, I got to stint because I'm like, I'm not happy. And your daddy, your daddy, your daddy. Like, I didn't want to be her. I didn't want to be her. Right? I didn't want to be her. So I felt like I really got to do this. I've got to live. I've got to live and I can't die. I can't die here. And so I chose life. So I did all of that. I went 2.5 years without dating, without all of the things. I really, really, really focused on me. I focused on who God says that I am, my identity in Christ and who He's called me to be. I, I dealt with things that had been affecting me for so long. This is why I say your triggers and your traumas and your past, like this stuff will live with you if you allow it. Because for so long, I lived with things that had happened to me. I lived with my inability to trust and my inability to forgive. Like I lived with those things and never confronted them until this season. There were things in this season that I was able to confront with God that I had never confronted in my 35 years prior. Ever. Ever. And so I was able to walk this season out with God. And God was all that I needed in this season. I promise you. I hear people say it all the time. And they be like, all I need is God. And I'll be like, yeah, you crazy. Because clearly, God is not all you need. Okay? He's all that we need for sure. But come on now. But it was a real thing for me. I walked this season out with God and I was okay. I didn't feel even the need for like companionship at that point because God was doing things inside of me that clearly needed to be done. He was working things inside of me that clearly needed to be worked on. There were things that were coming up inside of me that I never thought that I would even have the courage to deal with God, let alone to be able to say on this platform. But God was opening up wounds for me that had just been closed but never healed. And that was the journey that I was able to experience with my father. And honestly, I was able to know him as my father on another level while I navigated through this particular season. And so now it's been over 3 years since I've been on this journey, and like, I'm still not dating, right? Let me say this. I'm in a phase now where I am ready to date. So I am ready to start dating. I am ready to put myself out there. I am ready to get back into the scene and all of the things, but I needed time to heal. So, all of that to say, take your time to heal. Take your time to heal. You don't want to find yourself in repeat relationships because you haven't done the internal work that needs to be done. There is an internal work within you that needs to be done. And so for all of my single ladies, right? Because I know this is the season where everybody starts to get a little anxious and like, okay, boo, I want somebody to put on matching pajamas with too. I feel you. Listen, I feel that this year, okay? Like, where my boo at with my matching pajamas? I feel that this year. So I get it. Listen, I ain't criticizing because I'm on your side, okay? But I want you to think about what are some of the things that you can do, or have you done all of the work that needs to be done? Because I promise you, there is a contentment that will come over you. I know a lot of people don't like to talk about it because a lot of times people get the word contentment confused and they feel like, oh, if you become content in a thing, then you don't want anything different and you're going to end up staying in that space and blase, blase, and blah, blah, blah. But I beg to differ. First of all, there is a scripture in the Bible that says, whatsoever state that I am in, I have learned to be content. But if we apply that even to our dating lives, right? I choose to be content in my season of singleness until I meet the person, not the one. Okay, I got it. Not the one until I meet the person. I'm okay with that. It doesn't mean that I don't desire the person. It doesn't mean that I'm not ready for the season to change. It doesn't even mean that I don't have moments, right? Because I want to be completely transparent with you. I don't want to make you feel like I'm some nun over here and I'm walking around here and I ain't feeling nothing, okay? Because I would be lying to you. And I don't want to lie to you on this podcast because it's a whole podcast about identity. So it's so much truth here. So I don't even want to make you feel like I don't have moments of even like moments where I feel a little weak or vulnerable in like wanting that person for whatever reasons, okay? But I am content in this season until the Lord changes it. That's it. Contentment doesn't even always mean you like the season. It just means if this is where you choose for me to be, I'm going to be here until you say otherwise. That's it. That's it. So I think getting the spirit of contentment is imperative on this single journey because if we become impatient, if we become anxious, if we get to a place where we're not able to be completely content, and like I'll be the first one. If somebody say who getting married, I put my hand in the air because I definitely want marriage again. I absolutely love marriage, hence the marriage therapist. Okay, I absolutely love marriage. I love what marriage represents. I love the partnership. I love the companionship. I love the fact that I can do life with my purpose partner for the rest of my life and we can have a kingdom marriage. I'm all for that. So if somebody say something about marriage, you always going to see my hand in the air. Like I'm always going to be the loudest one in the room, okay? Because I definitely desire it, but it doesn't change the fact that while I am here in this particular season of singleness, I am content until that time comes. Doesn't mean that I don't want it. Doesn't mean that I don't desire it. Doesn't mean that I'm not ready for it. It just means that I'm okay here until the season change. And so I want to bring that same awareness to my single ladies, right? I want you to think about your single season. How long you've been single is not as important as what you've done with the time while you were single. Because there are some people who literally get out of one relationship and meet the person and they be married again in a year or two, right? I, that's just the way it works for some people, right? It does. And then you have other people who may be 10 years single, right? May have been in relationships here or there, but ultimately they might be single for a lot of years. It doesn't matter the time you've been single, whether you've been single for 12 or 24 months or whether you've been single for 10 years. The work that you did while single is what matters. How are you investing in yourself and being the better part of you? How are you working on those internal things that you struggle with, those internal things that you deal with that you think nobody else can see? How are you handling them? How are you dealing with them? And what are some of the things that you are doing? How do you navigate your single season? How are you navigating the season and what does it look like for you? What does the season look like? So I wanna admonish you to think about these things. It's not to condemn singleness because we're all here. In fact, I have another life coach who is also single, and I'm going to see about arranging for her to be on the podcast in the month of December. I don't know which week it'll come out, but I'm going to arrange that so that her and I can talk about this single season and these dating streets and all of the things, right? Um because I think it's great to even get a different perspective. I don't want you to just go off what I did. There are other people who may do things differently, and I want you to have I want you to do what works for you, honestly, but I want you to be able to hear from different people so that you can hear there are no two stories the same. Everybody has a different story. Everybody does something different. And whatever the Lord is calling for them to do, that's what they do. And so I admonish the same for you. Whatever it is that the Lord is calling you to do, whatever you feel like the Lord is saying to you in this particular season, I am admonishing you to follow the voice of the Lord and to do that in this season. There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about in your single season how you can devote all of your time and everything to God because you don't have a husband, right? So once you get married, like God understands that don't mean he don't get no time, but it definitely means that all the time that you could give and devote to God in your single season, you can't devote that same time to him when you're married. It looks different. And the Bible even talks about it. When you are single, that is the time when you devote all of your time to God. You're basically dating the Lord, right? But then when you get married, it looks a little bit different. So how are you gaining like clarity and how are you getting closer to the Father in this season? What are some of the things that you're doing in this particular season to not just become a better version of you, but become a better daughter to your Father? What does that look like? I would love to hear from you guys. I would love to hear how you're navigating this season and what navigating this season looks like. What's the hardest part of this season for you? Is it seeing the highlight reels of other people? Is it feeling like you're not enough because you don't have anyone? I mean, because we have to be aware of the enemy also. He will bring all of these things to the forefront, like all of these things he'll bring to the forefront because clearly he messy, right? Like the enemy is messy. And he wants you to feel bad. He wants you to feel down. He wants you to feel like you're not good enough. He wants you to feel like you're not worthy. And that's why you're single and that's why you don't have nobody. He even wants you to look at other people highlight reels, even if he knows that behind closed doors, their marriage is trash. He wants you to look at their highlight reels and he wants you to feel away. Like he wants you to be upset and envious and jealous and angry. Like he wants you to feel a way about it. Because for him, he gets to support the lie that he's telling you. The lie of you not being worthy, the lie of you not being good enough, the lie of you not being enough. He wants to support that lie. So he brings on these feelings. But it's your job to know the truth. It's your job to believe what God has said. It's your job to contradict the truth. I mean, contradict the lie with the truth. It's your job to put the truth up under your, I mean, to put the lie up under your feet and put the truth on its head. Like it's your job to do that. But in order for you to be able to do that, you got to be able to do the internal work that is required on the inside for you to have the momentum, for you to have the strength, and for you to have the wisdom to do it. Because you can't tell your insecurity something if you're feeding the insecurity. You can't tell your envious spirit something if you're feeding the envious spirit. You can't tell it the truth if you're feeding it. You can't. So it's important for you to acknowledge the fact that it is not true. It's a lie. I feel like this because, right? This is something that I do within my groups, right? I got a lot of things coming for 2026. So you gotta stay up to date. You gotta keep up with all of the things. You gotta make sure that you're staying attuned so you don't miss it. But one thing I do in my groups is you have to contradict the lie with the truth. I feel this way because identify why you feel this way. Speak it out of your mouth and get it out of your body. Why do you feel the way that you feel? What supports you feeling like this? And then you put the truth on its head because ultimately it is a lie. But it's only a lie if you believe that it's a lie. If you give it life, it becomes your truth. It becomes your reality, even if it's not. So don't give it don't give it life. Don't make it your reality and don't allow it to be your truth. So, that's what I have. This is all that I have today. Listen, I wanted to just go with my single girlies because I've been getting so much um in this particular season. Like, it's hard for singles in this season because our focus becomes more on what we see versus what we really know, right? We see the highlight reels, we see the people married, we see the people look so happy, but the reality is we don't know what's really happening behind closed doors. And so, because we don't know, we're going off what we see, and then we're mad at something that we see that doesn't even have truth to it. And there may be couples out there who really are happy, and that's okay. But it doesn't diminish who you are and your time of where you currently are in your journey, right? That doesn't diminish your journey at all because they're happy. Because they may have walked their season of singleness also. They may have walked their season of having to do internal work. They may have walked their season, and this is just where they are now. So you can't forfeit the journey. Ultimately, that's what I'm saying. You can't forfeit the journey. At the end of the day, we all have to journey. We got to journey. You can't forfeit the journey. If you forfeit the journey, you never make it to where you're going. We never arrive, let's be clear. But you never get to see the different seasons and to get to see the different things that God has for you on the journey if you don't keep going. If you stop in the middle, if you stop in the midst, if you give up, you miss out on all of the other things that God is doing, that He's choosing to do, that He's deciding to do. And you don't want to miss those opportunities. So you got to keep going and you got to keep journaling. And you got to be encouraged in this season. Listen, be encouraged in this season. Okay? Don't allow even the stigma of what the season represents for so many people to become your burden or your highlight reel. But you got to stay focused and not be distracted. Remember what God said. Remember what He's going to do. And if you're believing God for marriage and you believe that you've done the work, you believe that you've done all of the internal work that you can do as a single person, because there is another level that comes with being in a relationship. I do believe that there is only a certain level of healing that you can get to when you're single. When you get into a relationship, it'll expose other parts that you really don't get to tap into when you're single. And so, as you're navigating that journey, if you believe that you've done all of the internal work that you can do while you are single and you're believing God for your person, then keep believing. Don't stop believing. Be content where you are until He comes, but keep believing, keep speaking it, keep declaring that this is going to be your last single season. This is going to be your last single holiday. Like, I declared that over my life. 2025 will be my last holiday single. I believe that. And I believe that if I position myself with Christ, right? Because I'm a little bit different, right? I don't like date naps. We can get into that a whole nother day. I'm not really a date nap girl. Like, I feel like you get 25,000 good morning beautiful texts. Like, it, yeah, and maybe I just haven't seen the benefit of it, right? I've met some people on dating apps. The last guy that I dated who got really serious was on a dating app. I will say that. But I have not been on a dating app in over 3 years. Honey, I ain't been on a dating app in such a long time. And so for me, I'm just like, I don't really like them, right? But it doesn't stop me from believing that, organically, whether I'm in the grocery store or I'm in Home Depot, I always tell the people, like, if the Lord ever wake me up or if the Lord ever drop in my spirit to go to Home Depot, I'm going to be cute because I don't dwell there. Okay. Like, I am not a do it yourself kind of girl. I hire people for everything. So if He tell me to go to Home Depot, I know somebody is at Home Depot for me. I know somebody's at Home Depot for me. So I'm gonna pull myself all the way together to go over there to the Home Depot. Okay. But I'm an organic girl. I would love to meet someone the old fashioned organic way. I'm also a firm believer in staying focused on what God has called me to do, right? I try my best to focus so much on what God is calling me to do that I'm crazy enough to believe that I will meet him in this season, that I'll meet him on the path to doing what I'm called to do. Like I believe that. I listen, I can't say if that's how it's going to happen or not. I don't know. I'm not going to say I'll never get on another dating app because I'd be lying. I don't know if I will or not. Like, if it get to be July, I might be like, okay, let me try it out because I done declared that this my last year single now. Maybe, I don't know. But I definitely have the faith enough to believe that God will align our paths. I believe that. I believe that. Not saying that he's one particular person because I don't know who he is. But I believe that someone who meets the core values, someone who meets the standards of God, right? Not necessarily the standards of me, but the standards of God for me as his daughter. I believe that God will align the paths and that we will meet each other on our path to doing what it is that we've been called to do. And so I'm gonna leave it there. But that is what I believe. And so I want to encourage you on the journey to believe that if you have a desire for it and you've done the work, that God will meet he'll meet he'll meet the desires of your heart as long as it is in alignment with his will, plan and purpose for your life. So if you believe that this is the plan that God has for you, I believe that you will find it within. Okay? Listen, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of A Journey to Identity. I love doing this podcast with y'all. I don't even know if you guys understand. Like, I absolutely love, and if I get busy and I feel like I'm not gonna get it in, like I be like low key sad. Like, nah, girl, you gotta get that podcast done because I love having an opportunity to connect. I love having an opportunity to um, just speak on different things. And like I said, I'm going to try to bring someone on so that you can hear a different perspective. I feel like I might be dwelling on the singleness for just a little while. I feel like this is a great season to kind of talk about it. So we may dibble and dabble within this journey for like the next 2-3 weeks. But I'll definitely have someone on here to give you a different perspective. Listen, I am Sharon Tillman. I love you guys for real. Happy December, okay? Happy December. Have an amazing week.